welcome to Machine Shop Tech Talk, or welcome back to Machine Shop Tech Talk. In the world of manufacturing, it's not if, but when something goes wrong. And this is a podcast to help bring you possible solutions that you might need down the road. Today, I've got my guest, Chris Stevens, and you might have seen a lot of the noise around online around the home of manufacturing. Chris has been in manufacturing 15 years. He is committed to community, and that's what we're going to be talking about in today's episode. Chris, I am so glad you're here with me, dude.
Thanks, man. It's been an absolute pleasure to be here, and I know you and I have talked over the last handful of months, and I think this was a long time in the works, and just super excited to be here and finally make it happen.
Oh, me too, man. So we talked about the home and manufacturing. Let's first, for the people that aren't as familiar with you as I happen to be, do you have like a 60-second kind of snippet? And then after that, I want to dig into like, why'd you even get on that path? But let's start with who you are for the people listening.
Absolutely. So like you said, I've been around the industry for 15-ish years. Like any good humbling story, I started my career taking out the trash. And I think everyone kind of laughs at that. It's like, oh, that's where every story begins. For me, that was in high school. I began in a pattern shop in Green Bay, Wisconsin, learning the ins and outs of it. Unfortunately, at the time, I wasn't 18 years of age. So that meant no machines, no... nothing that could hurt me. So trash it was. But it was a good introduction for me to learn a lot of the ins and the outs, how the business runs, how machines operate, emptying out the chip containers, and everyone's favorite, cleaning the coolant tanks, was in there once or twice. And you really, just getting to know all that. That, for me, inspired the engineering background and career that has led through a variety of different med device, prototype companies, consulting work, and just a wide variety of challenges and problems that helping people solve throughout my career. Which actually led to what kind of the home of manufacturing. About a year ago, I kept asking the question of, what are the trade shows? What are the things that I should be aware of and going? And after about 3 or 4 months of complaining, my wife finally just told me, well, you know what to do. I was like, what? And she goes, well, if it's not there, you need to build it yourself because I don't need you to complain anymore about it. I'm like, oh, fine. So that really kicked it off. And I started digging into it. And the more I dug into the world of events and I started learning about what is happening, I started realizing how much I didn't know and how much of this information was out there, but wasn't easy to find. So I started building this repository, and it's like, this was originally intended just for myself. And then also I realized, like, this doesn't exist. Like, I need to share this. This has to be shared. So the events was the kind of the main, I'll say, foundation piece of it. And then from there, I started realizing, oh, there's a whole bunch of podcasts that I didn't know about or didn't find. So I was like, okay, here's a whole nother section. And what was supposed to be, a nice little neat and tidy little list that I could have. And I was like, I'll start with a, page of a notebook. Next thing I knew, I had like almost half of a notebook completely filled with information and names and all this. And I'm like, okay, this is becoming really, really big. And that's when I started building the website. I was like, okay, I need to organize it, put it together in a way that's easy to digest. And I'll be the first to admit I am not a website designer or a coder. So, by all means, this is bootstrapped at its best to kind of put it together and build it. So that's really where it originated from, was just out of a need or necessity for myself. And as I started to create it and design it, I started to realize there was a lot of other people asking the exact same question I had. And I have an internal mantra of, you get 1 point if you create something new, 2 points if you steal someone else's idea and use it, and then 3 points if you take someone else's idea and make it slightly better. So according to this, I only have 1 point, but I'm looking for ways to have the community help, contribute to it, find different things, find different events, voices that I missed, and add to it. And that's just how we continuously make it better throughout, hopefully, his long history serving the manufacturing community.
Man, so a couple things just jump out to me after you're sharing that. One, you'll have to thank your wife for all of us after you're off this podcast, okay?
She's the brains of the operation, let's be real.
But I love that she sees your ability to problem solve as well, right? You've made a career out of solving problems for people, and she's like, well, look, you know how to solve this problem. It's up to you.
Exactly.
and obviously that's when we started talking a little bit more. We started talking about when you were putting it together and gathering the podcasts and looking at events and all of that. So I love that there's a resource now. And I mean, right on the page, you've got a submit button. So, hey, if there's something not here that you think should be here, it's super simple that you can just click submit and then it gets updated. But the other thing that's super clear, dude, is this is a lot of work. So
Yes.
why on earth would you've already got a successful career, you've got a family, you've got all of these things, you've got a very full life.
Yes.
So why on earth would you spend all of this time for it? I mean,
That's a wonderful question, and I think some days I ask myself that same question, and like any good project manager, you come in and you estimate how much time you think it's going to take, and I didn't really take my own rule of thumb of times it by 10, and that's probably realistically what it was. But as I started building this, I started to realize that how much fun it was to explore and find different things. So along the way, I was learning a ton in the process, and I think for me, it's always been a natural, I'll say, drive or a curiosity to learn something new. So it was feeding my own curiosity at the same time as I was able to build something that could be shared. And if we go back to the problem solving, root of myself, I'm looking at the future of manufacturing and realizing like we have some pretty steep challenges ahead of us. And especially like as technology advances, as things become, evolving much faster, I think the gap from which someone learns something to when it's how long they have to implement it is becoming shorter and shorter in time. And the longer they take, the more left behind that they are. So at least my contribution to that problem is to try to help give more resources and information for people to close the gap faster. And I think the more that I can do that, it will hopefully, with all the right intent, accelerate the world of manufacturing to bring really cool solutions. And I think that the age-old thing that everyone is, and much of what you do in your career is, it's not a dirty, dark, scary industry. It's high tech. It's advanced. It's doing things that 10 years ago I would scratch my head and be like, no, that's not possible. That's not going to happen in 10 years. It's like that's the reality that we live in today. And for me, that's super exciting. So when I look at the work and the amount of effort, I know it'll get better and it'll get easier as I learn how to code, or God forbid someone actually helps me figure out how to code HTML and JavaScript and all that lovely stuff. Yeah. But it'll hopefully get better and easy. And I think as the community rallies around it, is I don't have to dig as hard or look as far and deep into the corners of the industry to find events and voices. I'm just hoping the community will help identify, hey, here's a really good person, great resource, great tool, great show, great event. And then we can share that with everyone and make it a very community-driven type of platform or event.
Yeah, well, and it's people, one, becoming aware. Same with what you're sharing. You're sharing with the events and with the podcasts and everything. These are places people go to share about the problems they've solved, so that if you listen, you now become aware, much like this podcast and anyone listening to us right now, right?
Yeah.
You're now aware. They're now aware of home of manufacturing. If for some reason they came across us without being aware of that. When you're talking about just the speed from development to implementation, it's something that I've always been frustrated by as a machinist, right? Because I started on the shop floor and I was like, man, like I would go, and in the beginning there wasn't a lot of online resources like there is now. So it'd be, I would call up my local distributor rep or my local Sandvik rep or Seco or whatever, cutting tools or whatever, and be like, look, I've got a 3.12 inch bore that I'm trying to make. Like, this is the material. This is how fast I need to make it. Like, what are my options? Because all I knew was when I did it with what I knew, I was way too slow to actually make the job on time and for profit. So I knew I had to find something better. If these parts already exist, it's not like it's not like at this time I was at an OEM or something where we're engineering it. No, these are existing parts that they've already had made elsewhere. So I know there's a profitable way, right?
Absolutely.
And the awareness is the thing. So sorry.
I mean, you nailed it right on the head. And I think it's the knowledge sharing. It's, why try to resolve, the problem of the wheel when someone else has already done it. And I think from that standpoint, at least for me, I found in the manufacturing spaces, there's an immense amount of pride in sharing, hey, look what I did. Like, check out this really cool problem I overcame or I oversolved. And I think you walk into any manufacturing facility, you just look at the floor and, the leadership, when they come up on this, like, we worked on this problem for 3 months and, we slept on the floor, never slept, never ate. We solved this problem and we didn't go home for 3 months until we figured it out. But then they figured it out and they're like, oh my gosh, like, it's here. And I think there's a lot of fear, especially in the industry, that everyone's going to take their trade secrets. And I think, like you mentioned it there, is, it's effort. There's a lot of effort and a lot of, time it takes to invest in solving to a problem. And if we can share even just a little bit of it, not all of it, but just a little, it's going to make the industry better and faster. And I think I read a quote the other day was, don't just raise the ceiling, raise the floor. Or I think there's another version of it is high tide raises all boats. But I think that was the idea behind it, was help raise everybody up a little bit, because then the ceiling itself continues to get higher and higher, because every foundational piece underneath it can support that higher ceiling within the industry. So I think that's, I could go on and on about that topic for a long time.
But it's an important point for the people listening. Maybe they've done amazing things and they've thought about going on podcasts and they just haven't taken that step. Oh, a couple things really quick. One, you can share broad strokes and not get super specific. And you might be thinking, okay, but if I'm not telling them exactly how I did it, what's the point? The point is you are now teaching another human that it is possible to accomplish. And we're all very smart people. If we know it's actually been done before, it's much easier to keep looking for that path forward, to try the next day, to try the next action, because okay, eventually I'm going to get there. It's actually possible. Other people have done it. Sports, it's a very similar situation when we're talking about runners. You'll have a plateau for like sometimes 60, 70 years where no one can run faster than a 5-minute mile or whatever. I don't know the numbers. And then someone does it. And then 2 years later, the entire world is now running that speed and beating that speed. Right?
Yeah.
The same thing happens in manufacturing if you let it.
I 100% agree. I love that analogy about the running and kind of the braking. And I look at it and I think of it too is there across the manufacturing industry, and I think in sports in general, and I'm forgetting the professional athlete who has that. He goes, I'm not talented. He goes, I just outwork everybody else. I think that's a very true thing. It's like, you don't need God-given talent or peer talent. And I think this in the world of machining it's effort. It's, are you willing and continuously always trying to learn something new? Are you trying to learn from your mistakes? Push the bounds of what you think is possible and experiment with that. I had my very first manager told me, he hired me and he goes, how many molds have you crashed in your career? And I was like, crashed molds? And this was injection only time. I was like, none. Like, that's the worst thing to do. And he goes, you're not trying hard enough. He goes, you should be crashing at least 1 or 2 molds a year. And I'm like, that's expensive. He goes, yes, but not moving forward is more expensive. And I was like, oh, got it. Okay. It's all starting to make sense now. And I think we teach in the industry is, breaking things are bad. Things breaking or falling apart is a bad thing. And I would say I have a very different mentality. It's like, I think if you're not breaking some things here and there, you're not pushing hard enough to try to find what's that next evolution. How do you break that 5-minute mile or 4-minute mile, whatever those. I mean, I'm not a runner. I'm trying to be a runner, but definitely not a runner right now. Just breaking the 10-minute mile for me, it's like, we're doing good work. So I have a long ways to go. But I think that's
I'm in that boat, Chris.
It's
for
the
record.
it rings true. Is like, you have to push in order to find what is beyond that level of comfort. And I think that's just something that's not always celebrated quite as much as I would like to do. And I think for me, I want to find the people that are breaking stuff. I want to find the people that are doing things that someone just goes, you're doing what? that's nuts. And then you're like, yeah, I know, but it's cool.
Yeah.
Like those are the stories that you want to find and talk with people about, because they're really doing stuff that is completely crazy and insane, which I love.
Yeah, and we're birds of a feather that way, right? Like, I'm not a runner, like I said threw in there. My wife is doing great on the running adventure now. She's got her time way down. I'm like, I will walk fast. That's okay, hon. You run. But outside of all of that, it's people that are breaking things. Like, I've never heard that mindset quite worded that way, so that sounds like a fantastic opportunity that you had a boss like that was like, look, like, push harder, because there's at least not that I have met, there's not a lot of managers or owners out there that are willing to be permissive about that, like to have that conversation with their people. And I think it's sorely missing. My buddy Kirk Phelps was on the podcast, and we talked about like the lack of leadership sometimes, and that's where I think, strong leaders that get that mindset that was shared with you in your career, they are the ones that have companies that are thriving. You would think, oh my God, it's okay to break stuff. Well, no, because you're making it okay for them to fail. And if it's okay for your employees to fail, they're going to try harder. Otherwise, they're going to stay, like, if this is their limit, they're going to stay right here. And the thing that happens is their perceived limit slowly lowers over time. And then your output in the shop, your productivity per person goes down in even like a 2-3 year span. It goes down incrementally every single year.
Yeah, 100%. And to be clear, when I say break stuff, this isn't mean being stupid and driving a forklift around with, I see all the YouTube videos or someone hanging off and doing whirly winds. Like, by all means, that's not break stuff, but it's, like you said, it's a fail in a space that you're intentionally trying to, as you put it, you're here, but how do you go up just a little bit? And this isn't one opportunity or one try. This is probably after 50 attempts or tries that you get that little bit. And I think out of all people, this, and in the space, like, this is average. And if you're this, like, you're world class. And there's just that little bit that makes you so much better than everybody else. And I think we see it time and time again that, everyone's like, well, what makes them so good? Or what is it like? They're pushing it just that little bit to get that little bit extra. And they're willing to accept that, hey, this might fail. And that's okay. Like, we're going to learn from it and then try again and keep repeating until eventually they find success.
Exactly. And I'm sure we could go on with this for forever, and it's not like I want the conversation to stop, but we are ending we're nearing the end of the recording, so I want to try to turn up to wrap up the conversation on this point. Look, Chris has done all the hard work. He's pushed his limits incrementally higher to be able to put out the home of manufacturing. So if you got to the end of this episode, you're like, man, I want to find more podcasts. I'll put the link down below for all of that. So you can, hey, what is out there in the world of manufacturing that's actually applicable to you in your career? There's a ton of options. So you've got somewhere to go if you want to take that next step. I mean, by all means, if you made it this far, you should probably hit subscribe and turn on notifications for me as well. Go over and find Chris and all of that good stuff, because if you hang out this long, you got to be enjoying what we're talking about. It's only about, I think, 20% of people that make it this far right now. I'm trying to get that number up, but it's only about 20% of you that actually make it this far. So thank you for still being here. But Chris, as we're wrapping up, what's a final call to action or request you might have from the people watching us today?
Great question. And I think the call to action, or the ask I have, is, the home of manufacturing is supposed to be a community-driven site or a central hub. And so if there's anything that's on there that you don't see, please let me know. If there's a new category or section that we should start including, let me know about that too, because that's definitely something we want to continuously evolve and, push that limit, is to say, how can we help everybody else? I like to say this, and my whole mantra is, is help everyone else. And it's amazing what the community will turn around and do for you when you need help. So this is hopefully what I'm trying to start, is a helping hand to help everyone find all the information and actions that they can take. I think I did some math. There's 450 plus years of experience in the voices of manufacturing. So
that's impressive.
I would imagine one of those years was there to help solve one of the problems that you currently have. So, I mean, very much like this podcast and a number of others, there's just so much knowledge that you can consume and level up your skills to be just that much better for tomorrow.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I think it's a great note to end on, Chris. Thank you so much
Absolutely.
for being here, for being a guest, for contributing the world of, the home of manufacturing to the world of manufacturing. I almost said that backwards.
It's tongue twister.
It is. But to all my machining friends out there, keep your spindles turning and earning.